I'm Joe.
And I'm Crystal. Ha! We
And
said it
we have
right.
we did. We have a guest with us today. You're going to meet our guest here in just a moment, but feel free during this interview. You're going to hear this in a few weeks on the show.
Mhm.
But feel free to jump in, give us your questions for Rolando, and we're going to have some fun. We won't even tell you yet
Yep.
what the
It's
topic
a
is.
secret. It's a
Yes.
secret.
All right. We ready to go, Crystal?
We're ready to go. Let's get this show on the road. Haha, so cliche.
I know.
Put on.
I know, right? All right, here we go. Three, two, one. And we're super happy he's with us. Rolando Pools here. How are you, man?
I am great. I'm so excited to be here on another another stacking adventure. This is
I
fun.
know. I
We're
know.
stacking them.
Well,
Stacking them up.
based on all the graphics in your new book, in this new project, you've had a ton of adventures. In fact, you opened this whole project, Rolando, by saying that you have all been on this Great American Retro road trip your entire life. How so? Tell us how.
I'll explain. It's funny. I grew up in Westchester County in New York, which is just north of New York City, in a little town called, it was initially called North Tarrytown, and then it became Sleepy Hollow in 1997. So, and it's the Sleepy Hollow as in the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow,
Yeah.
Washington
As in the
Irving,
book. Yeah.
as in the book. So I grew up surrounded by history and lore and all of this stuff, which I think helped influence my own personal interests. But I think my interest in this stuff, roadside Americana, the fancy way of describing it, began as a kid. We had a big old station wagon, like most kids did, who were born in the '70s, and we'd be running around the back there, no seatbelts, whatever, just playing. And I'm very grateful that I'm an intact 52-year-old who can talk to you, and I'm still among the living. But from that back seat, I was always looking out the window, very curious about the America that was passing right outside the station wagon, and all the places that I would see on these trips, whether they be nearby in town or in Westchester or in the metro area, but even on those big long trips. And one of there was one particular road, Route 119, where as a kid I would pass a number of old timey diners with neon signs. There was an old Holiday Inn with the big, massive old sign. They used to call those the Great Signs that were all eradicated in the '80s. I can talk about that later. There was all this interesting stuff that it was eye candy. And as a kid, it just really made a tremendous impression on you. You were curious about these places. Even then, they felt heaven sent, or like sent from another time or another dimension. And they captured my interest from the very beginning. And my interest in them only grew over time, especially as when you took more trips and you saw more of these places around the country, you began to then notice that these places were not they were not going to be around forever. You came to rely on seeing that muffler man outside the gas station, and then one day you drive by and the muffler man is no longer there. What happened to the muffler man? And so you begin to ask these questions, and so the interest built slowly, I would say, over time as a kid, teenager, then off to college and into my career, working as a journalist initially at a number of newspapers, then later in television. But the interest never went away. But I would say that it was really in the early 2010s, where I began to share these pictures on Instagram. And initially, it was, kind of an occasional thing I would do, or the Instagram was a mix of things. And every so often I threw in a neon sign or a funny little buildings shaped like a hot dog, or whatever it might be. And I began to notice that people really responded not so much to the selfie or the picture of what I had for lunch, but to the picture. No, nobody cares about me. They care about the signs, and they care about the roadside Americana. And then I was so interested in this stuff that I began to do more research. So it went from just being a place where a digital diary of sorts, where I would just drop a picture and put it out there, to began to do research. I began to dig into newspaper archives, and I began to go online and do these deep hour-long dives, make phone calls, do reporting, and began to write these little essays about these places. And it went from this occasional thing to the point where at one point I was posting every single day with a little well-crafted essay and a gallery of pictures. And it sort of picked up steam, and people began to get interested in it. And got picked up by some news sites and then some influencers. And every time that would happen, your audience would grow. Instagram seemed to like it and shared it with more people. So we very quickly, in 2019, I probably had, 2,000 or 3,000 followers maybe. And within a few years, we were up around 90,000 or thereabouts, And so it grew fairly quickly. And it was just an absolutely wonderful thing to witness and to be a part of, because here was this thing that I cared so much about that for years I felt like this was a quirky thing that me and maybe 5 other people cared about. Not true at all. You quickly realize that there's this whole universe of people who appreciate this stuff, but then also other people like you who are documentarians as well, who are going around the country looking for these same things. And that to me led to some really, really strong and special friendships with people that, they kind of slide into your DMs on Instagram and you become friendly, and then you agree to meet this person that you've never seen who lives across the country or God knows where, and you take a trip to this place, and you're taking some chances, but they're probably thinking this guy's a nut too, and this is not going to end well. But we always would have a great time, and we would go on these kind of quote unquote sign hunting trips in various destinations. We'd do some research, but then we would also just see where the road took you on any particular day. So it's been to me a creative outlet, but also a great opportunity to make friends, both people that I've met in real life who share these passions, people who follow my work, with whom I become friendly online. And all of this eventually led to the dream email that you always hope to get and never expect to, especially if you're kind of always wanted to write a book, but never had the courage, let's say, to put together a proposal and start shopping it around. And
Sure.
what do I do? Do I find an agent? All of this. I just was in a state of total flux about it, so I just kind of ignored it. And then out of the blue, I get this wonderful email from an editor at Artisan Books, which is part of Workman and Hachette here in New York. And they're like, "Hey, we love your stuff. They spotted it on a newsletter that was produced by Neil Patrick Harris, the folks who run that newsletter, Wondercade. They had the editors there had interviewed me, and that newsletter gets huge distribution and brought me a ton of followers. And one of those followers was a influential book editor in New York. And
you never know.
Dreams do come true, right? Serendipity, right? I couldn't believe it. And I said, "Are you interested in writing a book?" And I was like, just like, I can come over right now, I was almost afraid to scare her away from my immense enthusiasm for the idea. And a couple of years later, here I am talking to you guys and on this next step of this wonderful adventure I'm on.
This interview is probably the height of the whole thing. I'm sure, Rolando.
We're stacking, and this is the top of the stack. Here we are.
Absolutely. Well, and it's funny because I thought, you have to be a certain person of a certain age would like this. Yeah. And I thought, okay, as a guy I'm 57, I'm like, these old signs matter so much to me. And I remember so I went to Michigan State and
Ohio State. I always have to.
Yeah. So
there you go. We got it. We got the map,
Yeah. So. We got a little fight going on there, but anyway, one of us went to a fantastic school.
One-sided.
Right. But in East Lansing, just outside of East Lansing, was this wonderful grocery store, Rolando, and it had this woman in neon that would go back and forth, and she's pushing a shopping cart. The shopping amazing. Cart woman, and it was this incredible sign. This shoe store went in there, and everybody was freaking out. They thought that they would take it down. But this is how cool this shoe store, and it still is a beautiful shoe store. They left her out front, and they light her every night. So even though it's no longer a supermarket, grocery store, you still get the lady with the shopping cart every night. And, but you're not seeing that. You're seeing these signs go bye-bye.
Yeah, you see, it's a combination. There are lots of great stories of signs and storefronts that have been saved and repurposed, adaptive reuse, we call it. And it's nice to see that. There's lots of examples of that. But from time to time, it's bad news. I haven't done a count yet of the number of places that are in my book that were in existence in December when we sent the galleys over to the press to now that have since closed. And that's part of why I wrote this book, because I wanted to sort of get to these places before there was nothing to get to. My hope is that they stay around forever, but reality is reality, and that's not likely to happen. Certainly not in every case. And that's part of what drives the work. It's that instinct of being a preservationist and being there to say, this was here, this was special, and this is why I cared about it, and I hope that you care about it too. I'll give you a good example. Yesterday, I just sent out my newsletter on Substack, where I basically did Roadside Americana newsletter. So I share a lot of news about these kinds of places and their status and what's going on, and give people tips on where to visit. It's a fun read. And just as I sent that out, I got a comment on an old post that I did a couple of years ago on a video store in Beaumont, Texas, called Suncoast Video. You might remember the movie.
Oh yeah.
Suncoast Motion Picture Company. Remember Suncoast? There were hundreds of them all around the country in malls. They had that great neon sign. You go inside, and it was this completely overwhelming experience. You can just smell the VHS tapes and all the other stuff that was the vinyl and all of that, and the jewel boxes for the CD. Remember they called them jewel boxes for the CDs, and then you could never open them, and it was a whole anyway, whatever. So this wonderful place that I traveled all the way to this part of Texas to see a couple of years ago to photograph, because it was one of two that was left in the country, closed. And so the individual had come on my Instagram feed to tell me, hey, just so you know, this is no more. I went by there the other day, and I was so sad. So right then and there, I'm like, oh, this is terrible. So I must tell the world. So I immediately wrote up a post for Instagram, put it out there. And if you go through the comments, you can just see people, their reactions to it, and how, I mean, they're enjoying the nostalgia, but they're also sad and wistful that this little part of their childhood or their adolescence had hung on, and now it had been irrevocably removed. So there is a lot of that. So
well, and I always thought, Rolando, that you had to be a person of a certain age, but our intern Debony, from the local university, Texas A&M Texarkana, she's into it, man. She loves the old signs, the old stuff. So
awesome.
even as a 21-year-old woman, she's excited about this. So being a travel show, we want to take our adventures around the nation a little bit. Crystal, where do you want to start?
Well, what I loved about New York is when you go to New York, you go to a deli. What I liked about your book is you actually tell the story behind a lot of the delis. Because I've probably been to one of these, don't remember, but that makes them memorable. And now they're on my list to go visit.
Yes. We have there's sort of a Slayer's Row, if you will, of old-timey delis and iconic New York places, not far from where I'm sitting, on Houston Street. And you have the iconic and venerable Katz's. Houston, not Houston. Right, Houston. Yeah, Houston. We're so refined. We're Greenwich Village and Houston Street. And
but the Katz's is legendary.
Katz's is legendary, right? And it really is. And inside and out, it's a feast. On the exterior, you've got that great neon. And you can see how special and rare it is. All around Katz's, you can tell these days it's totally encroached by condominiums and all these new developments, but yet somehow Katz's has defied the odds, and it continues. It's still a viable, successful business. You go in there, there's always a line. You come in, there's a big line. And what I love about it, next time you're there, look on the floor, the terrazzo floor when you walk in, and you can see how it's grooved, and it's got these layers of loss, which just speak to how many people have shuffled in and out of there over most of the 20th century and into the 21st century. You see all of that. And then inside, Katz's is teeming with memorabilia and pictures of all the people who've eaten there. And of course, the sign pointing out that this is the table where a certain scene in where Harry Met Sally was filmed, which is which is a great deal of fun. And that's all right there in Katz's. You could spend a whole afternoon in there, but then you'd be missing out. If you spent all day in there, then you'd be missing out some of the other places that are right down the street, like Russ and Daughters, which is a legendary kind of appetizing place. And you can it's been there for over 100 years. And what's interesting too, it's a pioneering business. One of the if not the first business in America that where it wasn't like Russ and Sons. It was Russ and Daughters. I mean, a business that was run by women or co-run by women, which makes it in and of itself very historic. Jonas Schimmel Knishes further down the street, another great place to stop. And this is all within a couple of blocks of each other, right there on Houston Street. And there's just so much more to see in New York, but right there you could do a whole afternoon easy
in one block. And it's all that similar sign to Katz's, where it's that neon
yes.
look, red and green, I think.
Absolutely, with the little fish, I mean, it's just a beautiful sign. And it's flashing. It's so well maintained. Jonas Schimmel's is not neon, but it's an old timey sign. It's got the character and the grit. You can just tell you just know it when you see it, how special it is. If they swapped it out tomorrow, of course, the place will still be great, and I'll still go there and support it. But it loses something when that original piece of architecture, the sign is swapped out or changed or upgraded. And that's one of my pet peeves, which I think might come up a couple of times in the book, is when a sign is not entirely removed, but it gets updated and upgraded, and they replace the neon tubing with LED.
LED.
1 star.
Right,
Yeah.
right, Joe. Exactly. It's 1 star, if that. And listen, LED is getting a lot better, and there are some examples around the country of big, kind of spectacular signs that have been replaced with LED that look great. And I'm grateful we still have the sign. A good example is the let's see here, the famous sign in Massachusetts. I don't think it's the Citgo sign; it's the other one, but it's still there.
The Shell sign.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The Shell sign,
because you've got the Shell sign, and then of course the Citgo, which is right by Fenway, which are both iconic.
Both iconic, absolutely. And that's been replaced with LED, but it still looks pretty darn good. Oh. And it might have a different feel if the neon was still there. But so there is a place for this, I suppose. But ideally, you want to preserve that neon, and you want to put in that effort to keep it going. And it can be a challenge because it can suffer from degradation from the environment and kids coming along and trying to smash the tubing, and you have all those kinds of problems, but it's absolutely worth it from the warmth and the feel that you get from it that you can't quite get, at least not yet, from LED.
It's a radioactive glow on your
face.
Yes,
it really is. You feel the warmth, and you feel that literally you feel the buzzing and the humming. Yeah. It's kind of alive.
The sound,
the sound. Yeah, it's real. Somebody made this. Somebody trapped gas here and excited it. So
Well, you took us north, so let's stay there. Let's talk about celebrating lobsters and blueberries, because some of your pictures from New England, there's a place you found that looks like a giant blueberry.
A giant blueberry, yes, kind of a geodesic dome, and it looks like a gigantic blueberry. And outside there are blueberry-shaped signage and all of that. And inside, it's basically it's wild blueberry land, and it's combination of like an old-timey rest stop with dioramas and information about the importance of the blueberry and the role the blueberry plays in the economy and how good it is for your health, but also just a great place to fly. It's like a little museum, right? That old-timey mid-century type, even though it was opened much, much later. It looks like one of those places, but it was opened in the early 21st century. But it's got this wonderful theme, and then just great if you like anything blueberry. You want to take something home with you. You've come to the right place, and
it's funny
you're
how the
way
sign,
up there.
Though, itself, to your point, I think a lot of the time when you talk about these being taken down and LED lights come, like people don't realize that the building itself can be marketing, and I feel like that was lost for a long time when you look at some of these wonderful old buildings or old signage, and now to hear that this blueberry thing is way younger than it looks like, I mean that's pretty kick-ass.
It absolutely is. Well said. And I think I'm starting to see signs that people are starting to get this again, that we live in such a social media and technology saturated time. It's so hard to break through and make a difference now online, where everyone's in their phone competing for attention. And
Yeah.
one way to do that is just the lesson of the early 20th century. A big sign, a building that speaks to what's actually being sold or made there, something that really grabs your attention and compels you to pull over. And as we work our way across the country, I'll give you an example of a building like that also was constructed recently, and that if you look at it, you'd think, oh wow, it's been there since 1935 or something like that. So.
Oh, well, no. Let's go. Let's just do
Yeah.
potpourri.
Okay. Yeah, potpourri. Yeah.
Well, by the way, before you do that, that building
Yeah.
is in Columbia Falls. I've got right here on my notes.
Columbia Falls, you got it. Columbia Falls, Maine. So you are really up there in sort of the nosebleed seats of America, so to speak. No offense to the people of Columbia Falls, it's absolutely beautiful up there, and I didn't want to go. And right around there, there's all these things. Big Jim with his big lobster catch. It used to be sardines back in the day, but it's this giant kind of fisherman who has become a symbol of that area, and a gigantic lobster that lords over a Taste of Maine lobster restaurant. It hangs. It's like the world's biggest lobster. Very compelling. I mean, how could you not look at that and say, I got to at very least stop and take a picture? And if you've already done that and you see all these people milling about, you might as well go in and maybe have a bite. So it's funny. I mean, New England has a lot of these kinds of places. But again, when I think of these very large, larger than life roadside attractions, the mind always sort of races back toward the Southwest and certainly toward California. And the one that I referenced was in I believe Gilbert, Arizona, Topo, which is a burrito shop, but it's shaped like a little squat building with a gopher wearing a little hat, poking right over the parapet. It is the gopher's eyes light up. It is just the cutest thing in the world. And the guy who built it, grew up working in farms, and his family was agricultural. And one of the biggest pests that you had to deal with was like these rodents, these gophers. And so it is kind of an ode to his past, to the region's story, to his agricultural roots, and it's just a darn fun sign to see, and a lot of it mirrors that sort of vernacular form follows a function architecture that you saw especially in Southern California starting in the 20s and 30s. There's a place in LA that's now operated by this wonderful restaurant group, hospitality group, that's been restoring these iconic places, called the 1933 Group. They're incredible, and they have this place up in North Hollywood called the Idle Hour, which is it's a bar / restaurant, but it's in a big barrel. So a form, which is super neat. And in the backyard, they have a replica of this big bulldog that used to be a roadside stand that sold ice cream and tamales. And that bulldog has a lot of like the DNA of Topo can be sort of traced back to that. It's almost a loving gesture to that bulldog, and similar buildings like that were constructed in the 20s and 30s during those great years when cars were becoming affordable, right? The Model T, and you can finally, the road system was slowly being built out, and folks were getting their first real taste of freedom. I could get behind a car. What will I find? And they wanted to make sure that if you passed by, a business, that you would stop. And what better way to get you to stop than create something compelling to get you to take that picture, but more importantly, open up your wallet and leave a few, stimulate the local economy a little bit. So yeah, such good stuff.
And then there's a place too that's right here in my backyard. I was like, hey, I kind of have a hidden cameo in your book. And do you remember Old Town Alexandria in Virginia?
Yep. Old Town Alexandria. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have a Frisch's Big Boy in front of an ice cream. Well, it's a custard shop. And I actually made all the curtains that are hanging in that shop.
You're
the big
kidding.
boys, the big boy,
Yeah,
the big boys used
The
to be
ice house.
everywhere, and those are disappearing, I feel like. But you made all those curtains.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I actually want to offline with you about this place because
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
such a great story. And bringing
Please.
this kind of like Midwestern style custard to Alexandria and creating this lovely little nostalgic
Ice House, yeah, because it's a
oasis
super,
in an
yeah,
old
because
ice
it was
house.
the
Yeah.
original, yeah, the original Ice House too. They just, remodeled it, but it's the
Yep.
same original. Yeah, it's literally walking distance from here, not even a mile.
Wow, that's insane. Oh my God.
It's
Yeah. So,
neat.
and that's the neat thing is look at this is again another example of somebody who came along and did something, created a new place,
Hmm.
and that really captured your imagination, and you even ended up working there or helping them out a
Yeah,
little bit. So,
yeah,
I absolutely love it.
cool.
On the topic of food, one
Sweets.
company that has not getting rid of, I want to go someplace else, Crystal. I do want to get there,
Yeah.
but you were talking about Gilbert, Arizona and the Southwest. And that just made me think about your whole section on Roswell, which really
Yeah.
celebrates aliens. But one company just across the map we can talk about that does a pretty good job, I think, of preserving some of the older restaurants is McDonald's. Like you've got a picture of in Roswell, it's shaped like a spaceship, like an alien spaceship. But there was another one, and this one was kind of gross. They celebrate the boll weevil in one community. Can you? I
Yes.
don't even remember where the boll weevil is, but why the hell do we have a boll weevil McDonald's experience?
It's kind of frightening because I mean, as I write in the book, this is to be a place to be avoided if you suffer from either a fear of clowns or fear of insects. So and if you fear both, just stay out of Enterprise, Alabama. Just do not do it. I'm warning you. So outside of this McDonald's, there is a Ronald McDonald who's been turned into a kind of a boll weevil, this insect that was devastating to the local economy when it was ravaging cotton crops. And so the town sort of embraced this little pest and has a monument to it. And there's other representations of the boll weevil around town, and the local McDonald's store said, "Hey, we're going to get into it, and we're going to create a Ronald McDonald that's actually a boll weevil." It's kind of a little bit creepy,
Kind of troll,
and
huh?
exactly.
It was so creepy looking in the book. I turned the page and it just
Yeah, it's like,
captured my attention immediately. I was like, oh man.
Absolutely. And what's funny is that I wanted to get that picture so very badly. And I started that day in Orlando, Florida. And if you sort of look at a map, Orlando and Enterprise, Alabama, they're not near each other.
No, you got a long.
You have a long ride. And so I hit a lot of stuff on the way there, but I knew somehow, some way I'm going to get to this boll weevil. And it was like after sunset, I still made it work. I got there, I took the picture, exhausted. And I'm like, okay, now I can go to the hotel. So I've got him. But it's funny you mentioned McDonald's. McDonald's is definitely a theme in my book, and I write and post a lot about McDonald's throughout the book. McDonald's is one of those institutions that is something that we all share in common. I mean, we all have stopped at McDonald's. It's very hard to go very far in America without running into a McDonald's, certainly on a road trip. And so whatever we may think about the food or its contributions or lack thereof to American culture, McDonald's is a place that we have to wrestle with and contend with and deal with. And I'm a fan. I'm a fanboy to the extent that it's deeply sort of tied into my childhood and to warm memories with on road trips. And every Sunday we'd go to McDonald's after mass, and and it just tied into it. But McDonald's has both done a great job of hanging on to and celebrating its legacy, but then also erasing it. Over the past decade, you may have noticed many, if not most, of the old McDonald's restaurants that had the kind of the hip roof, the mansard roof.
Yeah.
It was either red or brown or whatever it was. Those have been replaced. They've been either repurposed or knocked down and rebuilt with these kind of like I call them Bauhaus style McDonald's,
Yeah.
or perhaps uncharitably McBoxes. I say this with love, McDonald's, but it's taken away some of the roadside charm. But there are still plenty of McDonald's out there that that are interesting and that do reflect the local culture. And the one in Roswell, the UFO shaped McDonald's, which has a lot of interesting stuff inside as well, some old McDonald's characters and things. Silvery aliens greet you outside. Is very, very, very interesting. So, but there's a little thing. I've been trying to get out to uh, Las Vegas, just outside of Las Vegas. I got a tip a couple of weeks ago that there is still an old Mansard McDonald's there that has this massive mural. It's sort of this trippy mural that it's got to be seen to be believed, featuring the McDonald Land characters, and it's kind of like ethereal and definitely 70s. There was a lot of interesting things happening in America then, and this mural inside this restaurant reflects it. And they were manufactured by this company named Set Makers that did a lot of the designs for the characters in the stores. And so far as I know, it may be the only one of its kind, this mural, the only one left. The other restaurants have been demolished, or maybe there's another one out there, but I believe this is the only one that's around. And I know I like to think of myself, unfortunately, as almost the Grim Reaper. Like when I hear about a place that's endangered, I'm like, oh no, that means it's going to go very, very soon.
Sure.
So I know the minute I think it, they're like, we think it's time to renovate this place. I send out some telegraph. Stop thinking. Just stop it. So I want to get out there before it is upgraded, which probably will be, just to sort of see it for myself and share it with other people, because I know they'll love it. But yeah, it is kind of sad that oftentimes you do feel like the Grim Reaper. You arrive at a place, you take a picture, you document, you share excitedly that it's still there, and then a couple of weeks later, you get a little note in a DM on Instagram, oh, bad news, that place you visited is no more. So it's a constant sort of battle to keep up with this and get to places before they're gone.
Where do you want to go next, Crystal?
Well, I was going to say, and it's tough because back then, there were no cameras, like we have on our cell phones to take
That's right.
pictures of it in its prime. So we're kind of looking at history, looking at it now too before it goes.
Absolutely. Photos are so rare from anywhere before the year 2010. They become very, very rare. I mean, digital cameras begin to emerge in the early 2000s, but now we're sort of awash in photographs, and all these places are well documented. But I sort of a bit of a sidebar here, but I often worry about, in a way, the fact that photography is so easy now, and it's all we have all these pictures on our phone. We can photograph anything. But where will this stuff live when you get rid of your phone, or when the day comes that these social media networks disappear, or you shut down your account, or that hard drive fails you, or whatever? It might be gone entirely. Whereas back in the day, there may have been fewer pictures, but they were more likely that they were printed and they were put in an album, or they were on a slide. So now they were a big deal. So now you go to a thrift shop and you find, and it can be sad when you find somebody's pictures in an old album or whatever, but it survived, and in its own way, this family story continues, and you can find all kinds of interesting things going through these old slides and albums. Whereas today, photos that people have on their phones or computers, once those computers and phones fail, chances are bye-bye photos
forever.
So in a way,
if Apple got rid of the their storage, I'd be so screwed.
Oh, we'd be done. Yeah, because even me, I mean, I'm guilty of the same. I have my hard drives, but most of my stuff is up in the cloud and on Google and on Apple and on Amazon, and it's easy to find that way. But it's also dangerous, I mean, to have all your stuff not printed and cataloged in a physical, tangible place. So all the more reason to do a book like this, to have it here. There you go. There you go.
Well, what's cool What's cool that I love is how in a lot of cases, these old signs become an identity of the place. So a few of them, I mean, you say Babe in the Blue Ox for anybody that's been driving through Minnesota, and you see Babe in the Blue Ox and that's it. You're in Dallas, Texas, 2.5 hours from me, and you've got the big Texan right at the state fair. That is a part of this area. Or in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the driller guy, that huge driller guy. What are some other places where you see the sign, Rolando, and you're like, this has now become a part of this place's identity?
Yeah, no, exactly. They're all over the place. I mean, I'll tell you, like you mentioned Babe and the Blue Ox, and that's Bemidji, Minnesota. But there are other Paul Bunyan's and the Blue Ox as well. And right near there is the the Big Fish Club, which is a giant fish that is also a supper club. I mean, or it was at one point, and it's still open actually. And it is a perfect example of it is the identity of that place. But another fine example is out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, near York. There is a place called the Haynes Shoe House. Which is now it's a Airbnb, so you can actually stay inside the shoe. It's a giant shoe.
Oh, it looks like a shoe. The place
Yeah.
is
It's a big shaped like a shoe, and it's a door like the little lady who lives in the shoe. That could be you, that could be us, But it was actually built by a fellow Marlon Haynes who ran a shoe company, and he wanted some sort of depiction of his great contribution to the world. So there it is.
How many?
Yeah.
Before we move on from the shoe, how many grandpas out there, have got, this must happen 100 times, Rolando, where grandpa comes up and goes, looks like we have a big shoe, right? You gotta, Crystal's like, I have no idea what the hell we're even laughing at.
No.
Cheryl, yeah.
We have a big shoe, it's a little Edward Sullivan,
Yes.
like it's a big shoe, but that's very, very funny, but yeah, places like this, there's in South Carolina, in Gaffney, there is this gigantic peach, the Peachoid.
Yeah. Have
Yeah.
you driven by the peach, Crystal?
No.
Oh God. It's amazing.
Yeah, because I went to the Citadel in South Carolina, Rolando.
Oh,
and but nobody refers to it as the peach. You point this out in the book too. Nobody refers to it as the peach.
No, it has other names. I think you guys aren't in any danger of getting into FCC trouble. It's a podcast. It's online. So,
you can say it.
But as there are there's the moon over Gaffney. It's shaped like a giant emoji that people tend to use to depict a certain thing, a body part. But it's really, really funny. It's even
the peach has a line right down the middle,
Yes.
Crystal. With a couple, it's like
the crack. It looks like the line.
The city of Gaffney is totally mooning you.
You're being mooned. So, but it's an incredible thing, and you see this thing, and I first stumbled upon it quite by accident. I was on my way to photograph something else, a place called Mr. Waffle, which is this cute little. There's only one Mr. Waffle. There are many waffle houses, but one Mr. Waffle has got a cute neon sign. Love it. So I was going there to Mr. Waffle, and then I see off in the distance. I'm like, I'm being mooned. What is up with this? Oh, this is very interesting. Well, I think I have found something more interesting than Mr. Waffle. So,
Poor Mr. Waffle.
I have found the giant tush in the sky, so there you are. So
while we're on the topic of inappropriate stuff, there is a sign that I thought that I'd see in the book, and maybe, Rolando, I missed it, but in Austin, Texas, on South Congress Street is a motel that's very well known, and they have a sign that looks very, very phallic.
Yes, it does. It's the Austin Motel, and listen. Just Google it. I'm not going to sort of get into. I hate to send people to Google when I'm trying to sell a book,
That's
but
right. Yeah, that's right. It's okay. You got one that didn't make it. I can see why they didn't make it.
There'll be a part 2 to the book.
That's right. I think if it didn't,
After dark,
it's not there. But it was. I think it might have even been there at one point, and in edits or whatever for space or whatever, it might have gotten lost. But it's a great sign. When I finally saw it, because it was on my. It was on my bucket list, if you will, for many years. And when I finally saw it a couple of summers ago, I was like, no, yeah, it's exactly what everyone says it is. I can't believe they did this.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking at these children, I'm like, kids, don't go away. Don't look. So like, shoo. So,
oh goodness.
Yeah, Texas is by the way, just, it's obviously it's a republic. It's its own country essentially, and it's by far one of my favorite places to explore. I saw so many very interesting things down in the southwestern portion of the state along 90. You pass through little towns like Marfa, and you see all these interesting places. Like I finally got to see the famous Prada store, which is sort of like it's this art project. It's like a Prada store with
right
its
outside of Marfa.
collection,
like
right
as you're
outside
coming
of Marfa.
into Marfa, you can't miss it.
You can't miss it. And not far from there is I suppose it's some sort of little concrete shack, a substation, some kind of building that somebody came along and put a Buc-ee's sign on for like the Buc-ee's convenience store, the little Big Beaver. He's so cute, and there it is, the world's tiniest Buc-ee's in the middle of this desert landscape in the American Southwest. And what is this doing here? It's just a great deal of fun, and a great reminder of how like Buc-ee's itself, which started in Texas in 1982 and has turned into this huge chain that keeps growing and expanding into other states, is in and of itself just a place that's just so much fun, because even though they're new and even though there's many of them, there's a lot to do in those stores, from great food to a reliable place to go to the bathroom or gas up outside.
Crystal, have you been to one yet? Have you been to one?
No.
Oh my goodness, Rolando's not lying. This place is a circus.
It's a circus.
Well, it sounds like what is it called? The Cracker Barrel. That's what it reminds me of.
It's on steroids.
Just it's a Cracker Barrel's on. Sarah, it's funny. One of those places that did not end up in the book. I was going to do a little write up on Cracker Barrel, but it never happened, because that too is a place that it's everywhere, and it does have like an interesting story. And there's the whole process of going to a Cracker Barrel and waiting, and they leave you in the gift shop, and what should I get? It's so brilliant, wonderfully brilliant, but brilliant nonetheless. But and it's funny. There is not long ago a Buc-ee's opened in Florence, South Carolina, along I-95, not far from one of the great roadside attractions of America, which is south of the border, aka Pedro, which is the kind of ersatz Mexican wonderland with this giant character named Pedro. It dates back to the 1950s, and the south of the border pun comes from the fact that this community, Dillon, South Carolina, is just south of the border with North Carolina. And so there you go, and this entire theme was built around it, which I don't think anyone would do that today, but they did back in the 50s. And but there is for me, it's a place that's meaningful in the sense that I've been going there since I was 4 years old. It was probably one of the first big roadside attractions that I saw as a kid, because my parents are Cuban, and all good Cubans once a year or so must check in with Miami, and just go down there and say, "Okay, we're here. We're in Miami. We can go home now." So we would take these road trips down 95, and you would start counting the miles for when you finally arrive at south of the border, because there were these very, very clever billboards that were strung along 95 and other roads, hundreds of miles in either direction, with all kinds of silly little puns. Chili today, hot tamale, south of the border, 32 miles. I've never seen sausage place, and it's a big giant sausage of it, like a big dog, So
Buc-ee's does that really well now too, with the signs as you see it coming. They've kind of emulated that.
They have emulated that brilliantly, and it does create a sense of excitement. Like, only 45 miles? I can make it.
Right.
We're bucking for Buc-ee's here. And the grandfather, if you will, of this phenomenon, it could be the old
Burma Shave?
Burma Shave, you got it. Yeah, the Burma Shave signs, which weren't as big, but there were these signs that were sequentially placed along the road that told a little story. And that culminated in Burma Shave. pick it up, Burma shave. You know,
And it was always it was always like a rhyme too, wasn't it?
It was a rhyme. Yeah, it was very thoughtful, and I should probably write down a couple so I can reference them. And but I do. There is a stop in the Southwest, which near Kingman, Arizona, that has some old Burma shave signs up, so you can have that experience if you want. But the place that really put that style of roadside advertisement on the map was Wall Drug.
Oh, 100%. I was so glad
Wall,
Wall
South
Drug was
Dakota.
in the book.
Yes. Yeah. I think of Wall Drug with great joy and just happiness, because one of my first big post-college graduation solo road trips was out to the Dakotas to see Mount Rushmore. One day I woke up, I was living at the time, was working at a newspaper in Allentown, PA. I had a week off. And I'm like, I want to see Mount Rushmore. I've never been there. So I just got in my car and left, and drove out to Mount Rushmore. And I stopped at Wall Drug. And like everyone who first encounters it, if you don't know what it is, you start seeing these billboards. And they keep promising you a cup of free ice water. Free ice water. And you just develop this obsession. Like, I must have this water, and it's just irrational. And you pull over and, where's the water? And you have your water, and then you're like, okay, fine, I'll poke around here a little bit. And it's a great deal of fun. And so I went to Wall Drug again for the first time in 25 years, back in November when I was doing research for the book. And then even stopped at another site there in Wall, South Dakota. They have a giant, the mysterious, elusive, mythical character, the animal, the jackalope.
I forgot the jackalope.
And so in Wall, you have this giant jackalope with the big horns. You can go in there and
so campy.
So campy. It's ridiculous.
There's one more place I'd like to shine a light on. I'm glad you're talking now about some of these roadside attractions. What we do is talk about travel, and a lot of the time you think, is this going to be a ripoff? And they're so campy and it's so fun. One thing one of our adventurers told me to do on a trip to North Dakota made your book, and that was go down the Emerald Highway. No. I'm sorry. It's not called the Emerald. It's called the Enchanted Highway. That's right.
You got it.
But can you tell everybody about the Enchanted Highway? Because Crystal, this place was so. We started down it. We're like, I wonder what this is going to be. This was a fun ass trip. It was so fun.
No. It really, really was. And it got on my radar fairly late as I was doing research for the book. And I began to run across these photos of these gigantic sheet metal structures, these giant birds. And there's even a farming family and these other gigantic characters. They are just immense. And they're all along the side of this road, which has been named the Enchanted Highway. There was a fellow who grew up in this town, Regent, North Dakota, I believe. We came back to town, wanted to help the town's sort of fortunes, revive the place. It wasn't doing too. There wasn't much in the way of business and or manufacturing to support the economy. So we said, let me, using my own creativity, put this place on the map. And so he had built these gigantic sculptures that extend for 30 miles along this highway that then culminates in a small little town of Regent. And there's a little hotel in town that he runs that's shaped like a castle. And you have a giant depiction of King George slaying the dragon. This wonderful medieval sort of motif that is in this place. But it's just I wanted to have some representation of North Dakota, a huge state, and for me, I thought, well, what better place than the Enchanted Highway with a name like that and with what the book's theme is. And you have to see it to believe it. There's a couple of pictures of it in the book that I think will get your attention. It's out of the way, but it's definitely worth the trouble to get out there.
I know when I saw it on the map and we were kind of headed back to the airport to go home, and I thought, do we really want to do this? And I'm so glad, Rolando, we did, because you can see, Crystal, these sculptures are so big, you can see them coming from a couple miles away. Like they are
absolutely
gigantic, and they have these wonderful big fish on some, talking about the fishing in the region, other ones about hunting in the region. Like every one of these sculptures has its own little part in a bigger story. And it's
precisely
really,
right.
Really beautiful
Wow.
stuff.
It's so beautiful, and it was interesting too. It's so desolate that for most of the time I was by myself. I was doing it early in the morning. I pull over, I get my pictures, I move on. But eventually, I met up with some people randomly who were there, and we started to talk about it. And the minute we both got out of the car, we sort of look at each other and we're like, what is this? You know, like, how did you hear about this? How did you hear about this? And we just stood there and say, and just sort of took it all in and kind of reveled in the utter absurdity of it. But I hope that if this book even sends a handful of people to this town, that would make me very, very happy. Hopefully, it'll do a lot more because it deserves that kind of love. It's just a very, very special place, and it's got that. It's just I think one of the things that ties all these places together is that these all reflect a certain streak of American ingenuity and creativity. How Americans always think of what can I do that's big and brassy and it's going to get attention, that says something about myself, that says something about my town. And I'm hoping maybe to give people a good time, have fun, and definitely this is America, and make a buck or two. And that is what I think ties so many of these places together, and it's why I think at some level it resonates with us because we sort of get it. We see America and a part of ourselves perhaps reflected back at us.
And it's great for storytelling.
Darn right, absolutely. I mean, if you want to tell a good yarn, each one of these places has like a compelling story.
So many cool stories.
Yeah, so many cool stories.
A great experience.
The book is called The Great American Retro Road Trip. What I like about it, this is what I think, Crystal, for our adventures. What you do, you take the book, you find a few places near the thing you were going to anyway on your adventure, because they're all over America. You take us everywhere.
Yeah,
or where you live too. Yeah, your own backyard.
Yeah, even in your own backyard. It was so cool to see some of the Detroit stuff, like in Allen Park. There's the big there's the big wheel. You got the big tire. Just seeing
from the World's Fair.
Yeah, we all grew up with. And Crystal, like in your backyard, you had some.
Yeah.
So the Great American Retro Road Trip, and it's available everywhere, I assume.
Everywhere, exactly. Everywhere, wherever you buy books, you can get a copy. Available for pre-order through the 24th of June, and then after that, it's in stores. So,
and you have your own website too.
Yeah, exactly. It's a Substack, and it's called The Retrologist, and it's all about these special places. So if you're it's a kind of a word that I coined. So retroologist, like the doctor of retro or whatever you want to call the expert on retro. Yeah, it's the first, and I believe I will be the only. But that's okay. One retrologist is enough for a generation. So someone's got to do it. Might as well be me. So
I like it.
Well, adventures,
I'm feeling old. Go see your retrologist.
I know. Have you seen a retrologist? 4 out of 5 retrologists recommend that at the age of 60, So
get in the car and go.
Exactly. That's my advice. Oh man.
Adventures, you know what the mission is. We talked to Rolando today. What are some of the iconic signs where you live? And you know what? We could all go visit each other. So please, some of those iconic retro places that you absolutely love, like that awkward side in Austin, Texas, or the Big Texan. We actually have some cool retro stuff here in Texarkana, and I know you do too, Crystal. Where you live?
Yeah, we have a People's Drug storefront still. It's a restaurant now, but yeah, it was cool to see
People's Drugs, exactly. Which was a big chain back in the day, and I've been actually through Texarkana as well. And you're constantly weaving from welcome to Texas, welcome to Arkansas, welcome to Texas.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
it was a fun. I spent the night there. I think on the Texas side, I was a little turned around. So
our job is to confuse you, but we do have an inordinate number of hotel rooms because people on the road trip are always like, "I'm going to drive to the border and then I'll stop here." Crystal still doesn't think I live in a real place, so
we'll made up word.
Like, what is Texas?
How do our adventures?
Made up word.
How do our adventures contribute with their stories and their places, Crystal?
Yes, please head to stackingadventures.com/mystory because we want to hear your stories about the places.
And we'll do that episode in about a month. But Rolando, thank you so much. I know we're a
Yes.
year out from Route 66 and the big
Huge.
anniversary, Route 66. And man, if people
Yeah.
want to see retro stuff, just drive Route 66.
Do the whole road. I did it in 2013 in 9 days, and
Oh.
it's a part of me that is
9
still exhausted
days?
from it. I did it in 9 days. It was
Whoa.
crazy, but try not to do it in 9 days, or better yet, take it in chunks. Do a little bit here, do the Illinois part, and then and just work your way across. But
Yeah.
it is worth it, and I guarantee you, it will. That trip will change your life. It's one of the most special things that you can do.
Hmm.
I think we'll end on that. I was going to say thank you,
Yeah,
but that's
there
a
you
great
go.
place to end. That's a great
Yeah,
last word.
That is great. And
All
even
right. Everybody
the
was,
book.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. No, I mean the book is great for. I say, oh, I read all the articles. You can read all the articles too.
Yeah, it's all right there.
Not
Exactly.
just
It's not just pretty
the
pictures,
pictures.
folks. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
If there's
Yeah,
people hanging out,
yeah.
people are very quiet. But if you were hanging out with us, thanks a ton. If you're watching this
Yeah.
later, you missed us, but we'll be back again. All right. Hold on, guys.